It's week 27 on the Appalachian Trail, and we are having the iconic breakfast at Shaw's, including the blueberry rock cairn pancakes. And then we are getting some last-minute gear stuff and headed back out on the trail to complete the 100-mile wilderness and reach Katahdin, and then complete the Appalachian Trail. Of course, this is just what I thought our trajectory of the week would be, but the trail had other plans for us. For those who don't know, the 100-mile wilderness is truly wilderness. There's only logging roads out there for the first 50 miles, and then after that, there is no easy way off trail until you get to A-Ball Bridge before Katahdin.
All right, it's fog and it's rainy, and of course there would be no other way for us to start the 100-mile wilderness. Only like 120 miles left. Can't talk. Let's fuck this shit up.
Selfishly and optimistically, I had hoped that the last week on the trail would be absolutely perfect, gorgeous weather, but as it was turning out, it was going to be kind of wet and rainy, but we were going to make the best of it.
It's the last mile marker of the trip. 2100! Less than 100 miles to go. And I think they're all going to be wet and soggy, because that's what the forecast says. Wouldn't be the AT without ending on rain.
It was pretty surreal to hit this last giant mile marker of 2,100 miles, and I still don't think it clicked in any of our heads that we were quite so close to the end. We had gotten in this groove of wake up, eat, hike, eat some more, hike, chat with friends, sleep, and do it all over again. And we had been doing it for so long, I don't think any of us wanted to think about that ending. But at the same point, I think we were all done with being wet and soggy. The first few days in the 100-mile wilderness were rough. Our first day out, we actually stopped after only about 10 miles because I was so cold and couldn't warm back up. And cold and wet out here was not a good mix. But the highlight of those first few days were seeing these absolutely magnificent pitcher plants.
Our last big mountain until Katahdin. In case you didn't hear that, I said until Katahdin. Supposedly, you're supposed to be able to see Katahdin, as the AT would have it for us. We can't see jack squat. It's a beautiful day.
That day we pulled a 22-mile day after doing only 10 the day before because I was so cold. And we thought that we were doing really well. We were in the home stretch. But then came the rain of all rains. This was one of the worst rainstorms we had on the trail. And it was torrential. And the river that we were supposed to cross that day became uncrossable.
Well, today I am breaking the purist because this is not safe to cross. This east branch of the Pleasant River, Barbie tried to cross, and there's just no way. After how much rain we got last night, there's just no way. So we're road walking, and that's how it's gonna be.
Before we had settled in the night before, we had walked towards this river crossing to see if it would be doable and to just make sure the water level was at a reasonable height. And it had been fine. But the next morning, when we got to that crossing with a few friends, there was no safe way to be able to cross it. One of the other guys we were with and Barbie both tried to find a way across, and they couldn't. And even if they had, I am 5'2", and I wouldn't have been able to cross.
So, 100-mile wilderness. I think it would probably be awesome if it wasn't the wettest, rainiest year. I don't know that that's actually accurate, but it is really wet and really rainy this year. Ask anybody from Vermont, New Hampshire, or Maine. And there wasn't a hurricane coming towards Maine, literally, Hurricane Lee. But anyways, we started the 100-mile. We were like, yep, we can do this. We've been in day 4 in the 100-mile wilderness. We've been in 3 days of rain. And We are on day 4 of being in the 100-mile wilderness. The first 3 days, it rained pretty much the entire time. Today, it's supposed to be clear, but jury's still out on that. Yesterday we pushed 21, almost 22 mile day after a shorter day the day before because it was so rainy and cold. But we pushed a big day so that we would actually make our food drop from Shaw's on time. And then this morning we got up and point 2 past the East Branch lean-to is the East Branch of the Pleasant River. And because of the torrential rain we had the night before, the river, it was not crossable. Like, there was no way it was going to be safe. Barbie started to try and cross it, and it just wasn't. We even tried to go upstream. We looked downstream, and the water just looked too rough. And so we are currently on a high water reroute that is a 17-mile blue blaze, which is crazy. Because we only we go around 6 miles of the trail, but yeah, 17 miles around. So we are currently doing that, hoping that on one of these logging roads we'll see some kind of car to pick us up. We don't know what to do right now. We're almost out of food because again today we were supposed to do our food drop with this reroute. We're not going to make that food drop. So right now the options are to hopefully catch the reroute or the drop, the truck that does the drops once this road connects with that road, or to, instead of walking this entire reroute to get back on trail, walking to the main road and getting a hitch back to town, because we've had really bad weather the last 3 days. I can't even describe the rain last night, and we're supposed to have even worse weather coming. It's like the first hurricane in a long time to hit Maine, or to be even trajected towards Maine. So we really don't know what later in the week's gonna bring. And we're about to be out of roads completely, and so out of bailout points. And so we are considering getting off for a few days and coming back and picking up after the storm passes, because at this point it's all about I'm not dying over this trail. That was how it was this morning. I mean, I have been a purist this entire trail, but that river crossing was not safe for someone my height or taller even, and it's safety first. I'm not dying over this trail. I want to do other trails. So we're road walking. We're trying to make the best, safest decision, because right now it's just not looking safe. I mean, with this storm coming, and we don't know what it's going to do. We don't know what other river crossings we might have. We don't know if we're going to get stuck out here again. So it may just be better to get off for a few days, let this hurricane pass, and get back on where we left off, or at least right past the East Branch of the Pleasant River, because I don't think that's going to look any better for a few weeks. But yeah, so it's been a tough morning, because it's tough to make decisions to get off and to come back on, especially in the 100-mile wilderness when you're so close. But also, it's important to finish in one piece. So we'll see what the rest of the day brings.
After about 8 miles into our 17-mile road walk, we were picked up by one of the survey members of the logging companies, and he gave us a ride in the back of his truck to our drop point. And after ironically sitting out in the sun and drying out and waiting for our Shaw's food drop, we made the decision to go back to Shaw's for a few days and wait out the storm, just in case there were any other dangerous water crossings waiting for us. This wasn't the decision that I wanted to make, but I did feel like it was the safest, especially after that unsafe water crossing. We didn't know if this hurricane was going to be really bad, cause a lot more rain, and make a lot more unsafe crossings. So we did what we thought was best.
What do hiker trash do on their days off? We go buy more antique postcards.
As much as the decision to hop off was tough, we were making the best of it and having a fun time in Monson, enjoying the few little shops that were there and, of course, some treats. This pumpkin pecan praline swirl was just the treat I needed, and I also did have a sip of Barbie's milkshake. I was drowning my trail sorrows in treats.
Hiker trash, vacation, adventure.
Seeing as we were in Monson for a few days, we decided to explore the area, and so we went on a little mini adventure to Turning Page Brewery to see the goats and for some people to have some drinks and to enjoy some food. Despite the fact that I was still grappling with our choices to get off trail, we had a lot of fun with our fellow hikers and my mom and my sister going around and exploring these little gyms around Monson. I don't remember what the sandwich was, but I do remember it was pretty darn delicious. We just sat and talked and laughed and enjoyed the goats with friends, and our friend Shooter even worked on filming a little bit of his documentary that he was doing about thru hikers, and we just had an overall good time, and it felt really relaxing just to feel normal for a little bit and to not really stress about the weather or anything like that, at least until we got back on trail. That evening, we enjoyed some more real food at the Lakeshore House before we followed a flyer and ended up at a community dancing thing. I'd like to say I knew what kind of dancing this was, but I don't. But we had a really good time, and it was full of Monson community members, hiker trash, and random people like my sister who joined in for the fun. I honestly loved how on the trail you stumbled across these events that you got to join in as part of the communities that you were walking through. It really just felt like you were connecting more with the places that you were traveling through. Before we knew it, the storm had passed and it was time to get back on trail. It felt a little bittersweet because we were missing those few miles, but I didn't know how, especially after the hurricane, how the east branch of the Pleasant River would look, so we had them drop us off at a spot 6 miles down the trail, and also one of the last roads in the 100-mile wilderness, so we were hoping for better weather during the rest of our time in the 100 miles. But besides my anguish for missing those 6 miles, it also felt bittersweet to be back on the trail because we had less than 100 miles left to go. We were so close to the end. And although this was supposed to be our last week on trail, I was actually really grateful that it didn't end up being our last week because we really got to enjoy and savor the last little bit of trail with our friends. And for signing off on week 27, here is Taco the Tent Ghost.